Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second stream. I have to go into browser very quickly just to double check. Yep. Yeah, sure, that muted. Not making the same mistake as last time. Today, we will be covering scene headings. This is something we touched on in the very first stream, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, linked in my bio. I should have my socials linked. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. The major difference, and obviously it sounds a little bit rudimentary and basic, but the idea between every scene heading that you're actually ever going to write will start with int dot or ext, which for the neophytes among you will be interior and exterior. And as I said in my first video, the scene heading should almost always cover exactly where the action is taking place. So, you know, if it's an interior, the interior has to be the focus of the scene, in that if someone gets shot, a conversation is had, something takes place that is significant or moves the plot forward, the scene heading has to focus on exactly where that is. If you have one that is not necessarily related or is sort of slightly off shot, I think you'd be fine to draft and maybe have a scene that's a throwaway that you can get rid of. But to help keep it focused, a good rule of thumb is your scene heading should always be where the action takes place. Just having a little bit of a moment with this. I do recommend this for actually some very soothing background stream music. All royalty free as well, which is quite nice. So, keeping it really basic, and obviously we're going to have to fight the automatic formatting of fade in because it hates me, and everyone that's going to ever use it, it's going to hate you too. The other one that's sort of fairly new to me is this interior / exterior, which, if I had to hazard a guess, I would imagine something that starts sort of between two locations. Either it's from an exterior to an interior or vice versa, in so much as if a conversation takes place, say, outside the front of a building, and whoever the scene focuses on walks into the building, it would be exterior to interior. But I'm presuming it's formatted like that, or at least there isn't a fourth option of exterior / interior. I think they just keep it as this to make sure it's consistent and not confusing. The next thing that I want to cover in detail is exactly the ordering in which this sort of takes place. So as I said in my first one, you should always go for the largest perspective and work inwards. And that's... obviously you don't want to go ridiculous, like if you want to say it's outside someone's house and you say exterior North America, Ohio, let's make up a town and call it Searcy, Lowland Street, number 318, pavement slab 9. That's ridiculous. You don't need all of this unless whatever exactly happens on pavement slab 9 outside number 318 in Lowland Street, Searcy, Ohio, North America is so unbelievably specific and important. You do not need to do this. That's a sort of it's an over embellishment, and it's also missing the time of day. So let's say 2 minutes after dawn, which is, again, needlessly specific. Instead, it should be as streamlined as it can. So exterior, let me think. Let's do Houses of Parliament. So let's say exterior, London, Houses of Parliament. Also, I've realized I put a dash there. Dashes are exclusively for time of day in a scene heading. You should not use a dash between these. That's just for commas. Just to make sure that whatever you're writing is correctly formatted. Just going to double back to the stream just to make sure that... stream just to make sure that this is all working as planned. Exterior London, Houses of Parliament, let me see, London, Houses of Parliament, front, because I don't really know the area that well, so I'm just going to say front gardens, day, there you go, or better yet, say Houses of Parliament, main entrance, or you could say something like threshold, midday. That would be enough to tell you exactly what city, building, and area of said building you'll be in. So as you see, it starts large and works its way down. And this is not just for you, but also the people who'll be reading your scripts to make sure that they have as good a place sense as you do. Okay, we're back to this, are we? So we've got our Kino script from before. I've introduced we'll be going over this, which is a pilot script I wrote earlier this year, which is 45 pages. I'll be going over that and showing you how I did scene headings in there. I did a previous script here, another sort of short piece in my private time, and test, which I think is probably the best script I've ever written, and we'll be doing that in just a second. For this one, we're just going to call this scene headings. We're not going to make this, nothing crazy. So yeah, you want to keep it will help you as you go through your scripts to make sure you're sort of following that thread to know exactly where you are and what you're doing. So that's an example of a fairly basic yet effective exterior scene heading. Now for interior, again, its specifics are good, but you don't want to overdo it. So a bad one, you don't want to be too basic either. So if you say interior Jim's house day, that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, as it covers everything you need it to. But what you want is, because there's so many different facets to a single building, particularly a house or a living space, you're gonna need to flesh this out and say where is this scene taking place, what part of the house. And you could say if it's a particularly dynamic scene, that it's, people are moving around, moving between floors, going across rooms, coming out of rooms, coming into rooms, that putting a new scene per room would be ridiculous. You should typically then start wherever you want this scene to begin. So if we say interior, we're just going to have a character called nondescript character called Jim. So this is Jim's house. Would I differentiate between floors? Possibly. But I think sometimes, unless specifically stated otherwise, or if it's a particular kind of house that needs that exact setup, unless your script demands specificity, don't fuss over it. So I think Jim's house, master bedroom, ensuite. There we go. So we know, and we'll give it, say, evening. So immediately to me, I'm thinking we're in an ensuite bathroom. Actually, we do need to specify bathroom just to make sure. So immediately I'm thinking ensuite bathroom with the door open so that we can see the master bedroom outside of it. So here you could have, a man shaving, a woman pulling up her stockings. You could have, someone taking a shower, and in the background, say in the master bedroom, you could see, an intruder rifling through drawers and that. So it helps place the scene much better with just the right amount of specifics. Now, as I've sort of touched on before, as to certain scenes are dynamic in which they involve a little bit of the interior and a little bit of the exterior, and that could be a scene that transitions between the two, or a location such as a car, which, like we said, it's where the action takes place. So if I think interior, Dodge Charger, Harvey Highway, day. Now, interestingly, you could argue that that is sort of going in reverse, in which you're saying, you're going specific and then you're going larger. So I may in fact have this wrong. It may well be that it starts interior of a highway, Dodge Charger. So it may just be me, but I think the way I would prefer to write this is you focus on the interior location first, to say, right, we're in an interior, we're in the interior of a car. Then the latter detail of where this car is should come next, because that's, if you have sort of a later scene and say, all right, so they've been driving through the Mojave, so you say Dodge Charger. Let's say there's a highway diner car park. It's a little bit sort of a little bit rusty as an example, but it works nonetheless, because at least then you can see a transition that they're sort of transitory there, so they're on the move on the highway. But if you say Desert Highway Diner Car Park, we know that they are now stationary and they are, you know, they're not moving, unless you want to say, you know, they park up or they're leaving in the scene action underneath. So I'm going to say for involving sort of a car, it should be interior, because the action we're going to say for this is taking place within the car, and then follow up with additional details of where the car is. And again, specifics are good, just don't overdo it. So interior, Dodge Charger, Mojave Highway, day, and then obviously this is where the action is taking place. So we're going to say, Bill. This is a unnecessary detail and is not relevant to scene headings, but it's always good for whenever you introduce a character. Their first introduction by name in the action should always be capitalized, and then after that it can be sort of singular, but the very first mention of them is capitalized always. Bill smoking cigarette. Bill smoking a cigarette, flicking the ash flecks out of the side window. Wendy, in the passenger seat, say, listens to tunes on a Walkman CD player, something like that. So it's wherever the action is, and you could say, well, is this really action? Because this is just the condition of two people, you know, what they're presently doing, smoking a cigar and listening to a CD player. Yes, that's still action, because that is what's important to this scene. Because if it would say, all right, so Dodge Charger, Mojave Highway, these two are doing this. If I said that, you know, as they drive through, they're driving through a car wreck, maybe, I think that would change it slightly, because then the action of the fire and bits of metal and people crawling out of, you know, shattered windows, that's all exterior action, and that's what I think where you would change it from the interior to an exterior scene. So we need to give this a little bit more life to say, all right, this is where the action takes place. Bill has 44 Magnum slotted in the what would you call, what's it called, the little box in the middle. Go back on chat and make sure there's nothing in the chat that I haven't read. Bill has the 44 Magnum slotted in I say holstered in the center console. There's nothing, we've rewritten the scene, so we've retconned the crash, but there's nothing going on externally in the vehicle, so we're just going to have this as an important detail / action that we're going to focus on. So we have Magna holstered in the center console, so obviously what's going on in the car is more interesting than whatever's going on outside, because we haven't mentioned anything about the outside. So same scene, but then we're going to make the action happen outside. So it'd be exterior, Harvey Desert Highway, day. Dodge, oh, don't want to capitalize it. Action, Dodge Charger, the action's happening outside, say 3-car wreckage involving 4x4 pickup, supercar and an oil tanker. The tanker is gushing. The tanker is gushing petrol onto the road. tanker, say, half sunk in a ditch, is gushing petrol onto the road. The supercar is upside down. Does that need a hyphen? Upside down? No, I think it's alright. The supercar is upside down and gushing smoke. The 4x4's front is caved in. The Dodge Charger slows down and creeps through the wreckage before carrying on. Before speeding away. Fairly nonchalant, and it'd be interesting to know why exactly Bill and Wendy are not fussed by this, but hey, whatever. As you can see, the difference is same scene, two different perspectives, and obviously since the action here is what they're doing / details about themselves, we haven't arrived at the accident. So the most interesting part taking place here is the characters themselves. You could say then, if you want to change the time of day and say that this scene follows from, so this exterior scene follows from the interior scene, you could say Mojave Desert continuous, which is also filled there as an accepted sort of, this is the time of day and this is the scene that's the most important about characters. This is what immediately follows. To say there's been no change between this and this. This is right now. But if I was to say Mojave Desert Highway evening, that puts a little bit more of a spin to this to say, all right, so these two are driving. I mean, you'd obviously need a little bit more because this is such a jarring change in time. It would just leave too many questions as to why you would make this choice. But it suggests that these two, same car, same highway, same location, just much later in the day. It could suggest, if you had a bit more to flesh between these two, that these two have been driving for so long that when they come across this wreckage, they don't care and they just keep driving. But again, this is all subtext, and that's a decent chunk of what script writing happens to be. What's our present runtime? How long have we been going? 17 minutes. I'd take that. That's not bad. So yeah, that's a good example between interior to exterior. So I think it's about time I figured out for myself how to do an interior / exterior scene heading. So we are going to go to the most powerful source known to man, Google. How to write int/ext scenes. The first link is always good. I do like this website. I've been here a few times and it comes with some pretty good information. A scene heading always consists of at least two elements, an interior and exterior indicator. Yes, we know this, a location or a setting. I think a setting is, I think a setting is probably used a little bit more for sci-fi, fantasy, or just a world that is not necessarily ours, so not Earth. So I'd say a location is typically for if you're writing something that is, human. It's Earth-based. Let's see, do they cover exterior? So they do have exterior to interior. Edwardian Hotel day tracking. I wonder if that comes up in our interior exterior. So if we said Mojave Desert Diner day, it says the next day, but it doesn't have tracking. So maybe this is where the kind of the free-spirited and the creative get involved. To follow a squad of firemen armed with axes, they charge through the doors into the lobby. There you go. That's exactly the way I would imagine it to be used, is following the action from the exterior to the interior, which is interesting because it doesn't include details of where they go into the lobby after that. So it's just Edwardian Hotel day tracking, and presuming this is quite a action-packed scene, we'll have a good understanding prior to this as to where this Edwardian Hotel is. So the previous scene would have either one or two previous scenes will know this Edwardian hotel is in Boston, or it's in Manchester, or it's, you know, in Tokyo. Why not? So we'll have previous contexts to why this, you know, to why you don't need all the extra details, and you're not fluffing it up and repeating yourself as to, you know, where you are and what you're doing, because yourself, you know, whoever you're pitching it to, i.e. producers, and the audience will already know where this is. I see a lot of screenwriting is a lot like composition. You kind of take it one note at a time, and of course, during the process of creating it, as you go from scene to scene, as you go from action to action, the overall melody won't become clear until you've got 10 pages, 20 pages, 30 pages, 50 pages. But when it starts to fit together, the context of the scene that came before as to the scene you're presently writing as the scene you're soon to write, it all influences each other. You know, it does not sit in a void. And the beauty of this is you can write something as simple as just these two. That's, you know, less than half a page of writing, but already that packs so much of a punch as to who these individuals are, where they're going, and, you know, if you want to continue with this evening front, the kind of people, you know, that would just, you know, slow down to drive through a wreckage, but not stop to help anyone. They would just keep going, you know, and so you can pack in a lot of storytelling very, very quickly. And then when you put scene after scene after scene, and you get the flow of a script going, you know, you can make something really exciting, which is when you don't need to fuss around with extra details like, you know, day and tracking and so on. You know, you do need to fuss around with details like that, but you don't need to fuss around with, you know, diner square tile 4, you know, over the threshold but nearer to the bar, you know, things like that. You just say Mojave Desert, diner, day, tracking, or even say night. And since this is an interior to exterior, we're going to say Wendy flings open the diner. Flings open the diner door. I'm gonna say milkshake as she runs out to the. Do we need any more of that, or is it just is it just Edwardian Hotel Day? Yeah, so you don't include exactly where they go. We're just including, you know, where they are. She runs out to the car park. She watches, not in horror, but she watches in disbelief as Bill wheel spins his Dodge. Bill watches in disbelief as Bill in his Dodge wheel spins out of the car park and shoots off of the highway into the night. There you go. So he's left Wendy behind. Maybe he's going back. Maybe he's going back to the wreckage, you know. But he, you know, we don't know the story behind these two, but I'm already kind of invested because I want to know where he's going, why he's left her there, and whether this is still ongoing. Interestingly, a wreckage sort of being left behind, it gives me No Country for Old Men vibes. If you've seen that film, you remember the scene where there's all those trucks parked in a circle, and every single one of them is laden with blood, bullet holes, and dead men, except for one man who's alive and drinks water. But the protagonist, I suppose, who stumbles across it, just kind of runs away, just sort of leaves it there after one man still alive asks him for water. That's actually a good script. I think we should see if we can download that. No Country for Old Men PDF script PDF. What I do like about scripts, that's ODF. What I do like about scripts is as PDFs are available online in just about every way. They're so easy to come across. I mean, you know, a couple of links to Google search, and you know, it's right here, and you can download it straight away. So, you know, the way I like to format mine is no capitalized on each word. Country for Old Men. I find these very easy to read, and I do enjoy reading them. When was this released? I don't know. We're just gonna guess for now. Oh, I don't think we can have question marks there, so we'll just save that there. Oh, did that change the file? Uh-oh. No, you're right. Fine, we'll just save that as is, and we'll just keep it real easy. But saving them as a PDF and reading them over for study, especially if you can compare them to the films as you watch them, is always actually, it's quite fun if you're sort of a film buff. But finding the particular scene, it's, you know, it's the inciting incident, which is part of the sort of 3-act structure, which we'll go into in more details in sort of future streams. But yeah, there you go. Exterior basin. Minutes later, Moss is walking continuously up to the site, unslung rifles at the ready. Flies drone. He circles 2 dead bodies lying in the grass covered with blood. A gunshot dog of the same kind we saw limping toward the mountain lies beside them. A sawed-off shotgun with a pistol stock lies in the grass. See, that's interesting, sort of very specific details that he's chosen to put in the action, or the writer's chosen to put in the action, as to the kind of scene that the protagonist finds and that we'll find. He opens the door of the second truck. The driver, sitting upright, still in shoulder harness, is staring at him. Moss stumbles back, raises his rifle. The man does not move. The front of his t-shirt is covered with blood. Agua, which is Spanish for water. Or Moss stares at him, and then let's see. Yeah, okay, so it's always good stuff like that, which we always like to see. Double back to the stream. We're just going to check out our runtime very quickly. 26 minutes. So we're kind of coming to the end of this one, or at least we're not far away from where I wanted to round up. So that's how I would do that. And then if we wanted to do exterior to interior, we're going to pack in as much as we can. Exterior to interior, so we're going outside to in. It's a little bit cheesy because then usually I just have her. Normally I wouldn't do this. If she turns around and goes back inside the diner, you would not need a new scene for that. You would just put that all in the action. But for this instance, let's say exterior to interior. Ave Desert Diner Car Park Night. Wendy climbs into the cabin of a big rig. Rigsby? Is that how you pronounce reading it? Why not? Rigsby. A typical American trucker. Watches her climb in. He's greasy with a baby face. Why not? Let's make him interesting. There you go. So we're not having her back inside the diner, but we're having her get into. We're watching her get into someone else's car. Actually, interesting. You would change that to say, if he's watching her climb in, he would have to be outside. For the exterior of this to make sense. You know, so just to it's a little bit vague on this one, but to make sure that you are consistent in where the action is taking place, it's exterior to interior. Which actually means no, he wouldn't be on the outside. So we're following Wendy as she climbs into the cabin of the big rig. Rigsby will have to already be in there. So as she's sort of adjusting herself and sitting down and, you know, hiding up her outfit or whatever, the camera will, you know, presumably if the producer's any good, will have the camera focused on him, and as he's reacting to Wendy climb into, you know, his big rig cabin. So yeah, he would already be on the inside, and which is why you can't talk about how he stands or, you know, how he's, you know, what his boots look like, because they're likely going to be, you know, next to the pedals and off screen, which is another thing. I'll get into off screen versus off camera, which is something that you'll find in character. So if we say Wendy, and then you put brackets after the character name, so you have voiceover, off screen, and off camera, which are other things that can be used for like scene placing, which I'll probably go into in a little bit more detail when I do a dialogue focused stream, which actually is something I should point out is while I'm doing these live streams, and I intend to make them fairly regular, I will also be interested in setting up sort of streamlined content of all the things that I cover here, and sort of short comprehensive videos on how to write effective scene headings and how to write entertaining screen headings, to make sure that, you know, whoever you're giving the script to, whoever gets a chance to read this, will be intrigued or amused or interested by why you choose the scene headings that you do, because these are the first impressions of a script effectively, because you'll have the title page and of course you'll have that, but the very, very first thing you'll have, otherwise known as the opening image of any screenplay, will be the scene. Now I'm sure the action will do most of the heavy lifting, but picking the right scene, the setting, the location, the time of day is, you know, essential to making sure that your script, you know, strikes a chord with whoever's reading it, especially if you're trying to get it put forward for a competition or put forward for consideration for production. So any kind of pitching, all of your script is kind of its own pitch, and everything you can do to get someone's interest in it, including scene headings, is, you know, is vital. So so to round it off, I think I'm going to go through into, well, let's keep it consistent. No Country for Old Men. Let's see what kind of scene headings we have here, because this is, you know, like I said, very, very simple exterior riverbank day. And it doesn't fuss around. It just says riverbank. You don't see, you know, what kind of trees are, you know, there, or what side of the river. It just says riverbank, which gives whoever's making this a lot of freedom as to what riverbank it looks like, you know, what kind of location they get to pick out. Exterior base at night, yeah, so very, very, I think this leans a little bit into what I said in my previous stream about whoever you're pitching it to is going to be in the worst possible mood, so making their day, making their read of your script as easy as possible is, you know, is also another really good tip. So Moss's trailer. Now, given that it's a trailer, it's, you know, we don't need to be too fussed about this. Not only that, it's an exterior there, so it's, you know, it's clearly in the view, but whatever the action is, it's taking place outside. As you can see, we follow the totally along the gravel path, 3 shallow steps up to the trailer door. So exterior, even though that's an interior location, you know, technically is an interior location, the action takes place outside, and that's why it's an exterior. Interestingly, he's put a sort of transition there which just is inside, which I am not actually adept at using myself, but I'm sure we'll cover at a later date. Trailways, bus, what else have we got? These are very long scenes. Interior motel room day, interior bathroom day, looking down the air duct. Oh, I love that one. Interior, looking down the air duct day. The duct hums with a low, airy compressor sound. The galvanized metal stretches away to a distant elbow. The document case is plucked down in the foreground and then gently pushed down, plucked down in the foreground and then gently pushed down the length of the tube by the coat pole. The free end of the cord trails off the handle for retrieval. It's a little clumsy there, but I think if you're doing a very particular action in a confined space, you don't want to be kind of extravagant and fluffy and fancy. You just want to be as specific and, you know, as simple as you can be. But it all comes into sort of writer's voice. So whoever the sort of screenplay is, it's the writer's kind of nature to keep these simple, and everybody has their own way of doing it. But typically, he keeps it simple, and that's what makes this really effective. That's what... I think this is also inspired on a book, if we try out the title page. Adapted screenplay by... the Coen brothers wrote this. Interesting. Oh, because they also wrote Fargo, if I remember correctly. I was not a fan of that as a film. I found it very annoying, but hey, each to their own. Well, these two are, you know, sort of titans in terms of screenwriting, so... if this is how these guys do it, it obviously has a trick to it. The simplicity works. The industry does not lie. As basic as you can get it, seems to make it, you know, that being it being an adaptation, I think, and also their reputation has allowed them a little bit to be as simplistic as they can. But for a neophyte, a sort of an amateur like myself, I think I would need to work a little bit harder to get their attention and have extra details and tracking in Mojave Desert and night and this, that, and the other, and, you know, main entrances. And of course, I can't just come out with things like this and say, yeah, what do you expect? Because, you know, I need to earn, but I also need to impress whoever it is reading my script. Someone like Quentin Tarantino, if they hand, you know, a producer a script, they're already going to have a fairly good idea of what exactly they're about to read, and, you know, any kind of creativity that is outside of industry standing format, they are going to be perfectly fine with. So, unfortunately, I don't have that tenure, so I need to work a little bit harder with my scripts, and I think putting in the extra effort is never a bad thing. So, but I think that just about wraps up everything I want to say at the moment. Doubling back to chat, as it wraps up everything I want to say at the moment. Yeah, 5 minutes over. I suppose all I have left to say is thank you everybody so much for watching. I will be uploading this to YouTube either later today or tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. There'll also be a link for my initial stream. I intend to make these as sort of potentially a bi-daily or tri-daily event if I can, and I'll be looking into making streamlined content. So if you want to consider supporting the Twitch channel or the YouTube channel, go ahead and like and follow me here so you can get notifications when I start streaming. As I don't have an established schedule, it's obviously going to be a little bit hit and miss, but it's early on and it's an absolute pleasure. So thank you all so very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you all in the next stream. Thanks again.